the Greek Prime Minister in India with the Indo-Greece strategic relationship coming in, and what he has to say about Prime Minister Modi, how India is making waves across Europe and the world, and how Bollywood is what his eyes are on, and of course, the Indian cuisine that he likes. That interview coming up on the other side. Thank you for joining me, Prime Minister Mitsotakis. Welcome to India.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure that you're in India, the first Greek Prime Minister to be here in the last 15 years. And the strategic level of India and Greece's relationship after Prime Minister Modi visited you last year, the first Indian Prime Minister to do so in 40 years. So what's the distance that you've traveled with Prime Minister Modi and India over the last several months?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy to be able to visit India as a Prime Minister of Greece. You're right to point out that it has been 16 years since a Greek Prime Minister visited India. And of course, it had been 40 years since an Indian Prime Minister had visited Greece. So I was very happy when Prime Minister Modi decided to visit us last August. And I think that visit was the opportunity to really put our bilateral relationship on a completely different track. We signed a strategic partnership agreement. And my visit to India was an opportunity to take stock of the progress that we have made, but also to chart the course towards a much stronger, much more productive relationship between our two countries, with many deliverables on many different fronts, which I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to discuss. But I truly feel that this is an opportunity to take our bilateral relationship to a different level. We have found ourselves in a very I would say fortuitous circumstance. The Indian economy is growing very fast. The Greek economy is growing very fast as we are finally permanently exiting a very difficult period for the country. My government has a strong mandate to deliver big reforms for the second term, and we have also re-established a true, I would say, established a true personal contact with the Prime Minister, which I very much appreciate.
You touched upon the fact that it's your second term. Prime Minister Modi is completing his second term, and we're in the middle of a very noisy run-up to the third term elections for Prime Minister Modi. How important is personal chemistry in diplomacy, in building a relationship with countries? And what is your relationship with Prime Minister Modi been like over the past few interactions?
Well, I think that's a very good question, because I think it's a very important question. Personal chemistry is very important, and it starts with a fundamental relationship of trust. Of course, countries need to see their interests being aligned. But on top of that, I think if there is a good personal chemistry, we can drive the change at a much faster pace, especially if, as is the case, we're both convinced regarding the strategic nature of this partnership. So without interfering in Indian domestic politics, I think things look pretty good for the Prime Minister in light of the upcoming elections, and I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to meet again soon and to further develop this relationship.
Mr. Prime Minister, we've seen trade relations increasing at a fast pace between Greece and India from 2021 levels of about $615 million. It's now, I think, $1.9 billion in just about 3 years. To what do you assign this growth? Is this the special chemistry relationship, or is it just the economies on both sides?
I think it's the fundamentals of two countries and two economies that are growing and that are now rediscovering their complementarity. And this should not just be about trade itself. We've set a target with Prime Minister Modi to double our trade by 2030. I personally think that this can be achieved earlier. This is also about investments. Investments by Greek companies in India, but investments by Indian company to Greece. I can tell you, having met a lot of Indian business people, that there is tremendous interest by Indian companies to invest in Greece. And I think that this is natural. If you just look at the map, Greece is the obvious entry point for Indian businesses into the European market. And I think after Brexit, Indian companies are looking for a new anchor in Europe, and Greece could very well play that role. The IMEC corridor, which is a visionary, generational project connecting the Indo-Pacific, India, the Middle East, and Europe. Greece has a critical role to play in terms of our logistics infrastructure, our ports, our trains, our energy networks, our data infrastructure. So there is, I think, tremendous complementarity between our two economies. And again, the fact that we both find ourselves on a high growth track makes the opportunities that much more obvious. My job in India is to educate the Indian business community about the opportunities in Greece, and to also educate the general public about the progress that we have made, because a lot of people may still think of Greece as a country with a problematic economy. And that was true maybe 5 years ago, but now the Greek economy is growing at twice the pace of the Eurozone average. Our fiscal position is very strong. We have a lot of European funds that are directed towards Greece to complement private investments. We have streamlined our processes and made the regulatory environment much more friendly for foreign entrepreneurs. And we already have Indian companies present in Greece. One of your leading airport operators is building the new airport on my home island of Crete. So India is not, we have investments in agribusiness, in pharmaceuticals, and I think this is just the beginning.
Well said. You've also said that India's gateway to Europe is going to be Greece, and the India-Middle East Economic Corridor is an important part of your Master Plan 2.0, as well as India's dream of connecting itself with Europe, with the Middle East. How much progress has been made, considering the fact that the announcement was made with a great deal of fanfare, but do you see Turkey throwing in a spanner in the works, because they've said no IMEC without Turkey being involved? Is that a roadblock?
Look, first of all, I think that this is a very visionary project that will not be completed in a year, 2 years, or even 5 years, because it requires significant infrastructure investment, and it also requires a condition of an overall condition of peace in the Middle East. And of course, what happened, the tragedy of what happened on October 7th, and of course now the war in Gaza, has maybe redirected priorities elsewhere. But I still believe that if anything, now IMEC is even that much more relevant, because at the end of the day, only countries that have peaceful relations trade and have economic ties. So looking into the future, past what is currently happening in the Middle East, I do see a lot of value in this project. Now, I don't want to talk about, the role of countries that may not see themselves as being a part of this plan. But at the end of the day, if you look at IMEC, the way it has been designed, there needs to be, a ship a shipping corridor that complements, a physical corridor. And Greek ships have a big role to play because we're the largest shipping nation. So at some point, goods will reach Greek ports or European ports in general. They want to make sure that we have the right infrastructure to welcome these goods. And this is not just about goods. It is about data. It is about energy. And it's also about people-to-people connections, because there's one thing we can do very, very quickly, way before IMAC is actually put in place, and that is to establish, for example, a direct flight connection between India and Greece, because I see huge opportunities in tourism. Both, of course, tourism from India is a preferred destination for Greek tourists, but think about the potential of Indians traveling to Greece. It's a 6-hour flight. Greece is popular for weddings. Islands such as Santorini, we try to encourage, your film industry to film more in Greece, to make Greece better known. But the potential for Indians to discover Greece in this particular context is huge.
Absolutely, and Santorini has been a destination for Bollywood for a long time and has showcased tourism in Greece.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that it's not just Santorini. There are many other places where Bollywood can film, and many other places which are worth visiting, many other places, for that matter, which are great to have a wedding for those Indians who choose to have a wedding in Greece.
Well, yes, destination weddings, but I don't know how that's going to fly, because the Prime Minister is also trying to portray Indian destinations for Indian weddings. So you have competition there.
Well, I think that's. I don't think we can ever compete with, with Indian destinations for Indian weddings. We just want our small share of the, of the pie.
Well, well said. But let me also ask you the question and the large statement that you made about the Russia-Ukraine conflict. You've been in total condemnation of Russia's move against Ukraine. But you also made a statement yesterday that India has the heft, and Prime Minister Modi is someone who can actually influence the manner in which this conflict can be resolved. Can you give us a sense of what do you think India can do even at this stage, and how this conflict can be resolved? And are there any differences, given the fact that India has played a very balanced role? It's kept its energy requirement, cheap energy requirements that Russia has fulfilled, along with the humanitarian care for Ukraine. How do you think we can take this further?
Well, first of all, the point that I made yesterday in my speech is that this is not just a European war. This war has broader consequences. And for a democracy such as India, that has every interest in maintaining the rule-based international order, what happens in Ukraine actually matters. It matters because the Ukraine war was a brutal effort to change, redraw, maps, sort of lines on the map by using force. And this is something which, in principle, should not be accepted and not just condemned, but we have been, by we I mean the European Union, we have been supporting Ukraine, because at the end of the day, when this war comes to an end, because all wars come to an end, we want it to happen by Ukraine being in a strong position and not in a weak position. So what I've said is that, again, maybe countries that, for their own reasons, which I fully understand, have taken a more balanced approach, when the time comes, they need to throw their negotiating weight in helping us resolve this. But again, for us, it was never a question of keeping equal distance between the two parties. There's an aggressor, and there's a country that has been the victim of this aggression. But for me, it was more a recognition of the fact that India really matters on the global stage, and people look at India as a big global player. What you've done at the G20 was remarkable overall. So you're the 5th largest economy in the world, and you're becoming, maybe the leading voice of the global South. So it's important that you have that India has a view and sort of an opinion on these issues.
Let me ask you a direct question on personal relationships and diplomacy. And let me ask you, you've been at the helm of affairs for the last several years, your second term in Greece. How do you see India on the world stage in terms of its stature, in terms of its voice, and in terms of the manner in which, let's say, Europe and America look at India as a voice from the East?
Well, first of all, let me make 2 points. India is a democracy, and it is admirable that you have a sort of a well-functioning democracy with 1.4 billion people. This is something which I don't think we frequently recognize, in the West, the complexities of what it means to have a sort of democracy at this scale. It has also proven that democracies can deliver for the people. In terms of what has happened, I've been coming to India for many, many years. I mean, the progress that you have made is remarkable, and some of the things that India has done, especially on the digital side, on bringing really hundreds of millions of people, out of poverty, providing them, basic infrastructure. This is remarkable, and this has raised the stature of India as a leading voice of the global South. And in that sense, I think there's a lot of respect for what you have achieved. And when I look at the relationship between India and Europe, I see, again, natural complementarity. I hope that at some point we will be able to agree a mutually beneficial free trade agreement. I think it will be a milestone in terms of strengthening the economic ties between our two countries. And I think that also the G20, the fact that you managed to include the African Union in this debate, gave what we call the global South a new visibility and a new impetus. So one more thing, we've been advocating reform of the Security Council. And India deserves a permanent seat on the Security Council. We cannot talk about multilateral institutions without recognizing the fact that the world has changed significantly since these were created more than 70 years ago.
Very, very well said. Also, the fact that Greece has supported India's bid at the United Nations Security Council, but also in terms of what is an emotional issue for India, the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. Greece has often supported India on this count. And we've had problems with countries like Turkey, which have taken this issue to the UNGA and stood with other countries. How do you see this region? India, Pakistan, the way democracy has functioned in India vis-a-vis the other countries around this region?
I mean, our positions, and they have not changed. And again, this is also relevant for what's happening, in the Eastern Mediterranean, our, sometimes complicated relationship with Turkey. But what we said is that at the end of the day, there is one playbook by which we can resolve these issues, and that is international law. And in our case, in particular, the laws of the seas. And India has supported us also in this fundamental premise. So without going into much detail into the regional complexities of your relationships with your neighboring countries, what I can tell you is that Greece has always had a very principled approach to these issues, and we will continue to do so.
In the end, what fascinates you about India, and have you tried Indian cuisine?
One of the main reasons I always love traveling to India is because I get the real Indian food. And of course, you know better than me, there is not one Indian cuisine. But
what's your favorite dish?
Oh, I have. I'm actually a big fan of Indian. Although I love my tandooris, I'm a big fan of good Indian, vegetarian food, which I sampled yesterday at the Prime Minister's mansion in a wonderful lunch he offered us. But I've been coming to India since 1993. I'm fascinated by India, and the one thing that we have in common is an understanding that Greece and India are two ancient civilizations. They contacted each other and have exchanged ideas, wisdom for thousands of years. And for me, every trip to India is an opportunity to discover something new. And I think this affinity between our civilizations is also, I would say, the foundation upon which this relationship can further develop.
Well, on that note, thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you very much for speaking to me and Times Network, and thank you for your visit to India, and we do hope you'll take back with you some good memories.
Yes, and
of
hopefully we'll also have, and again, encourage your viewers to come and visit Greece and spend time in Greece to sort of appreciate, Greek culture, Greek cuisine, beautiful Greek landscape. We hope to see many more Indian visitors come to Greece.
We will do that, and very much hope that this entire interview squad is in Greece for another interview with you.
Good. I'm sure they'll be happy to join us.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Fantastic speaking with you.
Thank you so much.